So we've talked about supplements in the context of the overall diet for individuals, but now let's talk about supplements and athletic performance. Supplements really do not enhance performance. There's no evidence to support the use of supplements to enhance athletic performance, so it's best to just avoid them. Usually athletes are consuming more food, which in turn is going to have them consume more nutrients. So because of the increased energy needs of athletes, remember their needs are usually increased 1,000, maybe 1,500 calories. They're going to consume more food to meet those energy needs, and in turn, if they're making healthy, nutrient-dense choices, then they should easily meet their needs for all the vitamins and minerals. So there's no need for supplements in that manner. Additionally, it's important that athletes prevent nutrient deficiency. So that may be why someone may think that they need to take a supplement in order to prevent a nutrient deficiency. But again, go back to this point, more food is going to equal more nutrients. This may occur, nutrient deficiencies could occur in an athlete that's maybe trying to make weight or going through a mode of starvation. But for the most part, nutrient deficiencies are going to be fairly uncommon in athletes. Now, athletes may be at risk for iron deficiency. Sometimes they may need to replace their electrolytes like sodium, chloride, potassium. But for the most part, nutrient deficiencies are not very common in athletes. As I just mentioned, iron is one mineral that may be a common deficiency in athletes. So iron deficiency can impair performance, so it is pretty important to prevent this sort of deficiency. Iron, if you think back to our lesson a couple weeks ago, iron is needed to deliver oxygen to working muscles, and insufficient iron is going to decrease aerobic work capacity. So someone that has low iron is going to become tired much more quickly than someone who has adequate iron stores and then adequate iron intake. Sports anemia may be common, so this is a type of anemia that's going to be caused by strenuous endurance training or activities and cause destruction of red blood cells. Sports anemia is usually temporary, unlike the other types of anemia, and usually goes away on its own without treatment. So during phases of rest is when those red blood cells are going to have time to repair themselves. So there's no sort of iron treatment for sports anemia. Groups at risk for iron deficiency are going to be individuals that have low intakes of iron-rich foods, females that have high iron losses through menstruation, individuals who are participating in endurance activities that place very high demands on muscles for iron. So these are the individuals that may have this sports anemia. And then vegetarian athletes are at risk, not because they're consuming inadequate iron, but because the iron in plant sources which they're consuming, so this is going to be non-heme iron, is not as readily available as the heme iron in animal sources. Remember that vitamin C enhances iron absorption, so especially for vegetarian athletes, pairing vitamin C with non-heme iron sources is a great way to enhance iron absorption and keep those iron stores adequate to prevent iron deficiency and prevent this impairment of performance. Physically active people also lose fluids, and they must replace them to avoid dehydration. So just like any other individual, adequate fluid intake is very important, and as is preventing dehydration. So athletes are going to lose fluid through breathing and sweating, in addition to through urinary losses. And dehydration has varying degrees of severity. So this can very much impact athletic performance. But a 2% water loss, which really is not much at all, can decrease performance, and then a 7% water loss can actually lead to collapse. So it can be very dangerous. Sweat is the body's coolant. So what sweat does is that when it evaporates, it's going to cool the skin and the underlying blood of the individual. Heat stroke can occur due to an accumulation of body heat with a loss of fluid. So again, this is one reason we want to make sure that we're replacing our fluids. Some symptoms of heat stroke include things like clumsiness, confusion, having a very high body temperature, nausea, dizziness, headache, stumbling, sudden cessation of sweating. All of these can be very severe, and heat stroke can actually be fatal. So it's really important to replace and rehydrate to avoid dehydration and heat stroke. We think of heat stroke being the only thing that happens during hot weather, but you can also have something opposite but somewhat the same. in cold weather. So this is hypothermia, and hypothermia is the loss of body heat during exposure to cold weather, and it can also be very serious and even fatal. Fluid and electrolyte needs for athletes. So water is the best drink for most physically active people. However, endurance athletes are going to need drinks that also supply glucose because they need to replenish those glycogen stores, as we previously talked about. It's important to hydrate before, during, and after physical activity. So you can check out table 10.5 in your book for an example of a recommended hydration schedule. And electrolyte losses are also going to occur during exercise, and replacement of those is also very important. So electrolytes are going to be things like sodium, potassium, and chloride. And for most individuals, the regular diet is going to be sufficient to replace these electrolytes that are lost during activity. However, for individuals that are exercising very strenuously, and especially for those that are exercising for more than 45 minutes or even an hour in very hot weather, sports drinks may be a good option to replenish those electrolytes. For those of us that are just exercising, maybe we go to the gym for an hour every day during the week, a sports drink is not really necessary to replace the electrolytes. Water is our best choice for rehydration, and we can replace those electrolytes through our regular diet and meal intake. Hyponatremia is a condition of sodium depletion. It's going to occur from basically overhydration. So it's not really a sodium deficiency, it's just our sodium concentration is going to be very low. This can occur when athletes drink large amounts of fluid over the course of a long event. So maybe someone is running a marathon and they have water in a pack and they just keep drinking water the whole time. And what happens is that this overhydration or this excess amount of fluid is going to dilute the body fluid to the extent that sodium concentration is going to become too low. Sports drinks can help prevent this and to treat it. So, trading off between just plain water and a sports drink or an electrolyte replacement beverage may be useful to prevent this. Additionally, leading up to a race or an event, salt should not be restricted. And again, this is going to help keep sodium stores or sodium levels and concentration adequate to maintain that electrolyte balance. Heat cramps can also occur from having sodium depletion. Other beverages to talk about with rehydration. Carbonated beverages are usually not recommended because of the gas bubbles. They might limit the ability of someone to consume enough fluids because they make you feel full, those gas bubbles. Caffeinated beverages are somewhat of, they're debatable. So caffeine may actually improve performance if you read more about that in the Ergogenic Aids, the controversy for the chapter. But remember that caffeine is a diuretic, so it could cause dehydration if too much is consumed. So moderate amounts are really important if you're going to consume caffeine. Alcoholic beverages are not recommended for replenishing hydration status. They might impair performance, they act as a diuretic, and they're vitamin and mineral poor. So they are providing energy, but they're not providing any sort of other nutrients. So alcoholic beverages are best to avoid during and after exercise. Using a performance diet, this is just a snapshot of table 1011 in your textbook, but a performance diet should focus on energy, carbohydrates, fat, protein, vitamins, and minerals, and fluid. What I really like about this chart, and again, carbohydrates and energy are missing from the top, but you can view everything in your book in this table. It gives you the guidelines for the dietary guidelines for Americans, as well as the DRI, and then the performance nutrition recommendations. So take a look at that and see how the dietary guidelines differ from performance nutrition recommendations. So usually it's the amount that's differing or the timing that's differing, but we all need the same nutrients, whether we're athletes or whether we're just normal average individuals. We all need the same nutrients. It's just the amount and the timing that differs among individuals. So with that, many different diets can support physical performance. So if you are vegan, if you want to consume a high carbohydrate diet, low carbohydrate diet's usually not recommended, but maybe someone's gluten-free, whatever other diet is out there, all kinds of diets can support physical performance, but there are some factors that need to be considered. So nutrient-dense foods are needed to supply vitamins, minerals, nutrients, and energy, as we've talked about throughout the segments this week. Carbohydrates are important to fuel or to keep our glycogen stores full, because glucose is the preferred energy source not only for athletes but for everyday individuals. Focus on lean protein sources that are low in saturated fat. Again, this is somewhat of the same recommendation whether you're an athlete or whether you're the everyday American. As far as pregame fueling, these meals should be small, they should be easily digestible, they should be high in carbohydrate, again, to top off those glycogen stores, moderate in protein, and they should provide ample amounts of fluid. And then afterwards, recovery meals should replenish energy and glycogen stores, and a combination of protein and carbohydrate is best. So again, some examples of that might be chocolate milk, apples and peanut butter, celery and peanut butter, whole wheat bread and peanut butter, a peanut butter sandwich, cheese and crackers. So think about your own favorite protein carbohydrate combinations and what might be a good example of something for you to use as a recovery meal or a recovery snack. All right, so controversy 10 is about ergogenic aids, breakthroughs, gimmicks, and dangers. I'm not going to go into the whole controversy. I'll let you read that for yourself, but I want to give you a summary basically of what ergogenic aids are and what the research says. So ergogenic aids are any sort of product that supposedly enhance athletic performance. So supposedly is the key word. They may or they may not. You can check out table C10.2, and this is going to give you a whole bunch of ergogenic aids. You can view the claims about it, the evidence, any sort of risk, and just check that out. It's a lot of great information, but too much really to go through, and you're not going to be tested on specific ergogenic aids. So it's more FYI. The scientific response about ergogenic aids is really to let the buyer beware. So again, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. But do your homework. Don't just, go out for the next, you hear that this is the next big thing. Really do your research and make sure that, you're not putting your money or your health at risk or gambling with these two things. While ergogenic aids are touted heavily in bodybuilding and health magazines, there isn't any scientific evidence to show that they're effective. So again, just beware of what you're putting in your body and focusing on foods and those components of a performance diet should be adequate to help you meet your needs and provide optimal performance.